start. My name is Diana Gill. I'm an executive editor of Harper Voyager, which is the U.S. branch of the global HarperCollins Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror imprint. And we have a fabulous set of authors here today talking about urban fantasy. I should have asked this before, but we mentioned the packing, and you can all hear me, right? This is working? Okay. If the authors are introducing themselves and you can't hear them, please let us know. So we're going to be talking about urban fantasy. Woohoo! This is good. Clearly this crowd likes this, so this is awesome for all of us. And urban fantasy is the intersection of the contemporary real world with science and technology and magic. I like to say it's our world only better. Like when you were little and you thought the lady on the corner might be a witch. In urban fantasy, she very well could be a witch. So we have a wonderful cast here, and they're going to go down the line, starting with Liesel, and introduce themselves. Save the applause till all at the end.
Hello everybody, I'm Liesel Schwarz. I'm the author of The Chronicles of Shadow and Light. My first novel, The Conspiracy of Alchemists, was out earlier this year, and the next one will be out in October called A Clockwork Heart. And it is a romantic adventure steampunk series set in Europe, across various locations in 1903. And the first book starts off in Paris in 1903, and it's full of very interesting and exciting creatures from the 19th century Gothic literature. And it's really great fun to write because I also live in London, and I flew across to come and visit with you lovely people today.
I speak for all of us here that we're in love with your voice. I'm Kevin J. Anderson, and I've written over 120 books, so there's a lot of different things to choose from: Star Wars and Dune, and the Saga of Seven Sons, and Captain Nemo, and steampunk stuff. But the things I've been doing recently is a series about a humorous urban fantasy series featuring Dan Shamble's omni-private investigator. He's back from the dead and back on the case. And he solves crimes with vampires and werewolves and mummies and ghosts and occasional humans here and there. And there's 3 books out, 2 short stories. I've just sold the 4th book, and we just optioned the rights to a TV series for development, so which is worth the year it's printed on until something happens.
And I'm the perfect example of that because I'm Marlene Perez. I'm the author of the Nix Fortuna trilogy with Orbit Books. The first book in the series is Strange Fates. It's my first adult urban fantasy set in Minneapolis. The main character is the son of the 4th and forgotten fate, so there's a lot of Greek and Roman mythology and some snark. And I'm also the author of 8 Dead Is books, which are teen paranormal mysteries with Liesel and Harcourt. And those books were optioned by Disney until about a month ago. So speaking of falling into the air, that is my sad story. And I'm a local author. I live in Orange County.
Hi, I'm Richard Kadrey, and I'm the author of the Sandman Slim books.
Hi, I'm Kevin Hearne. I'm the author of the Iron Druid Chronicles, and they're about a 2,100-year-old druid and his donkey.
My name is Max Gladstone. My novel 3 Parts Dead came out back in October, and the next book in the series, Two Serpents Rise, is out this coming October, so good year in between there. And it's about a junior associate in an international necromancy firm who goes around trying to resurrect dead gods.
Hello, I'm Jim Butcher. I'm the author of the Dresden Files, featuring Harry Dresden, the Charlie Brown of urban fantasy.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the settings. We have several authors here who have urban fantasy set in distinct locations we can all point to on a map, and we have several authors here who have locations that we cannot point to on a map that is not in their books. So I'd like you each to talk a little bit about the setting, why you did it, if there were any challenges. Is it easier to pick a fictional place? Is it easier to pick a real world place? Jim, can we start with you? The Dresdens are in Chicago.
Sure. Yeah, the books are set in Chicago because my writing teacher would not allow me to set them in Kansas City where they were originally set. She says, Jim, you're already walking close enough to Laurel Hamilton's toes that you don't need to set your books in Missouri, too. And that will be an obstacle to selling them, so therefore, as part of this class, you have to fix it. And, there was a globe on her desk that had four, and there was only 4 American cities on it. And one of them was D.C., and I didn't want to pick D.C. because if you pick D.C., you have to write politics. I didn't want to do New York because superheroes had that all sewn up. I didn't want to do L.A. because I didn't want to do L.A. And so that left Chicago. So I said, how about Chicago? She was like, right, Chicago, perfect, wherever. She might have been, she was one of those toughest nails kind of editors when she was editing it. But, so I set it in Chicago, which turned out to be a great blessing. Much of my career has been really me being not very bright and trying to make something, trying to make something happen and then finding out, oh, I lucked into something really cool. Chicago has a great deal of history. It's old for an American city. And being able to dig into sort of the supernatural and paranormal history of Chicago has been a great deal of fun. At first, it was a lot of trouble being able to research it because I was a poor student and I couldn't really go to Chicago. But as the internet developed, I was able, and as the book started coming out, I was able to keep a list of local residents and say, hey, what does this side of Gladstone Cemetery look like? What's the wall look like? Oh, I drive by it on my way to work. I'll take a picture of it on my phone and I'll email it to you. It's like, this is the best research ever. By the way, if you ever go to the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, the big aquarium, and you start asking them, hey, what happens if somebody shoots out this glass wall into the aquarium? They don't like that. They're very serious there. Bear that in mind, food for thought.
All right, Max, your city is an alternate world where there's both sort of technology and steam, and then magic is used as a craft. Talk about that a bit.
Sure. So I started writing 3-Parts Dead in the wake of the financial crash in 2008. I was looking around and realizing that there was this immense sort of spiritual, immaterial world that had fallen apart and had a direct, kind of real impact on the way that my friends and I were all living our lives. So gosh, this feels kind of like the way that magical wars and spiritual wars end up getting described in the world. The more I thought about that, the more I thought, well, the modern world that we're living in, people talk about science fiction a lot, but there are a lot of fantastic elements too. There's this whole universe that's supported basically by faith and belief, and now I have a magic mirror in my pocket that with a few mystical passes can bring me any piece of knowledge that has been accumulated at any point in human history. So I thought, well, let's try to make a story about a fantasy world that is in a modern sort of state, in a modern moment. So the first book is set in the city of Alt-Gulam, which there's a fire god who is sort of in charge of the city and runs the steam boilers and generates all of the power and keeps the lights on, and then he dies for a variety of reasons, which causes some problems for everyone. So about that.
All right, Kadrey, your books, the Iron Druid Chronicles, start in Arizona, but Hunted goes all over several continents. Did you get bored with Arizona? Did you want to travel as an excuse? What happened?
Well, I started out in Arizona, in Tempe, basically along Gill Avenue, because that's, it's the college town, and you can just really, run into anything, kind of like here. You just don't know what's going to, come around on the next block. And it's a great place for somebody who's trying to hide to just sort of fade into the background when there are so many other colorful characters around. So it was convenient for him for a while, but then the story kind of forced him out of that area. And yes, he's been on the run quite a bit, especially in the last book, where he's pretty much running the entire time. So the research for the UK and for the run across Europe, I had some really awesome fans who, overseas, who were happy to help out. That's the cool thing about people who are experts about something. They cannot wait to share it with you so that they're validated and that you feel cool and everything is good for everybody. So yeah, I had some folks help me out through emails and stuff like that. People are cool.
All right, Richard, Jim specifically and definitely did not want to write about LA, and you absolutely did. Go.
Absolutely. I love LA. It's the most venal city in America. And it's great for that. It's an incredibly honest city because of that. I mean, it's a place where people will look at you and try to figure out, can I get something from you? No? All right, let's move on. And I love that. And I mean, it was a chance to tell a story, a strange story set against movie industry, entertainment, and all the kind of hangers-on to that world. And that was a lot of fun. And I love the LA punk scene. I was a part of that, so that was, close to my heart. And some of there were power spots throughout LA. I haven't been able to work it in yet, but one of them is the old Mask Club. It is one of the central magic spots in Los Angeles. So it was just, a city that I have a real love-hate relationship with. It was a lot of fun to play with.
All right, Marlene, the next Fortuna books are in Minneapolis. What made you go north from Orange County and go all the way to the Midwest to Minneapolis?
Well, I grew up in a little town in Iowa called Story City, Iowa, and I kind of felt that maybe Chicago and LA had already been owned. and I wanted to set it in the Midwest because I think a lot of times, especially in publishing, East Coast, West Coast, and there's like this whole world in the middle that we forget about sometimes. And Minneapolis is Prince's home. And I love Prince. And so I was like, that's the city, right? And so it's 3 hours north of where I grew up, so I had like some familiarity with it. It was a big city we went to when we would go, shopping or special occasions. So I knew the city, but a long time ago. And I just thought it would be a nice change, a different city.
All right, a follow-up before we go to Kevin. Does Prince show up in the books?
No.
All right, Kevin, your books are set in the unnatural quarter. Discuss that a little bit.
Well, there was this big event called the Big Uneasy, where all of the monsters and mythical creatures and vampires and werewolves and ghosts, everything came back. It was in alignment of the planets, and virgin's blood was spilled on an original copy of the Necronomicon. Now, the virgin was a 58-year-old librarian, and the blood came from a paper cut. But it fulfilled the letter of the prophecy, so the supernatural doorways opened and all the monsters came back. And then life went on. So all of the monsters sort of congregated into a part of the city called the Unnatural Quarter, where it's a lot like New Orleans, but it's not really New Orleans, which allows the writer the freedom to make up whatever he damn well pleases. I wrote a book a few years ago with a fairly obscure author named Dean Koontz called Frankenstein Prodigal Son, and we decided to set that in actual New Orleans. So I had to do tons and tons of research on New Orleans, because I don't live here. I live in Colorado Springs, which is like the antipodes of New Orleans. Colorado Springs and New Orleans are totally opposite. And that was a pain in the butt to be doing all this